The crowd inside the massive America's Got Talent theater buzzed with energy. Bright lights danced across the stage as families, friends, and hopeful contestants waited for their chance to make a mark. The judges' panel gleamed under the spotlights. Simon Cowell leaned forward, his trademark expression unreadable. Next to him sat Heidi Klum, Sofia Vergara, and Howie Mandel. The atmosphere was electric, but no one could predict what was about to happen next. The next contestant walked quietly onto the stage, a slim young man, maybe in his early 20s, barefoot and wearing a simple white shirt and jeans. His eyes were calm, but there was something unusual, something peaceful about him. He smiled softly, almost shyly, as the crowd murmured. Some whispered to each other, "Is that really his name?" Simon adjusted his microphone and asked, "Hello, what's your name?" The young man looked at him and said, "My name is Jesus, from Manila, Philippines." A few people in the audience chuckled awkwardly. Simon raised an eyebrow but didn't smile. "Jesus from Manila," he repeated. "Yes, sir," the young man replied. "It's my real name. My mother named me Jesus because she believed I'd bring light to dark places." The audience went silent. His accent was gentle, and his voice carried sincerity. Simon leaned forward. "And what will you be doing for us today?" "I'll be singing a song I wrote myself," Jesus said. "It's called Light in the Storm. It's about finding hope even when life breaks you." Howie smiled kindly. "That's a beautiful message. Are you ready?" Jesus nodded. He stepped back, closed his eyes, and took a deep breath. The lights dimmed. A single spotlight fell on him. The audience waited. For a moment, the entire room held its breath. Then came the first note. His voice was unlike anything the judges, or anyone, had ever heard. It was soft, trembling at first, but carried a raw depth that seemed to touch every soul in the room. The melody rose slowly, filled with emotion, like the cry of someone who had known pain yet refused to give up. "I walked through the fire. Through nights without name, but love kept on burning. Through sorrow and flame." His voice cracked slightly, not out of weakness, but out of truth. Tears began forming in people's eyes. The camera zoomed in on Simon. His arms were folded, but his face had changed. He was no longer judging, he was listening. The song built higher. Jesus raised his arms slightly as if embracing invisible light. "When the world forgot my name, I still heard you whisper mine. In the dark, you said, 'Child, you were born to shine.'" By now, the audience was standing. Phones were out, people recording, tears streaming. It wasn't just a performance, it was a spiritual experience. Jesus opened his eyes wide as he sang the final line. "So let this light inside of me be seen by all mankind. For even in the storm's cold heart, love is still divine." The last note echoed through the hall like a prayer. Silence followed for 3 long seconds, then an explosion of applause. The crowd erupted, cheering, crying, clapping in rhythm. Sophia wiped her eyes. "That was something else. I don't think I've ever felt this before." Howie shook his head in disbelief. "That didn't feel like an audition. That felt like hope took human form." Heidi leaned forward. "Jesus, your voice, it's pure, but it's more than that. You sang from a place most people never reach." Simon was still silent. He stared at Jesus for a moment, then stood up. The audience gasped. He walked toward the mic. "I've been on this show for a long time," Simon began slowly. "I've heard great voices. I've heard incredible stories. But what you just did," he paused, visibly emotional, "that wasn't just a song. That was a message the world needs right now." The audience began chanting, "Golden buzzer. Golden buzzer." Simon looked at the button. Jesus was still standing quietly, hands clasped, tears in his eyes. Simon whispered, "You remind me why I love this show." And then, with one firm motion, he pressed the golden buzzer. The golden confetti exploded from above, showering Jesus as he covered his face in disbelief. The audience screamed and cheered louder than ever before. Simon stepped on stage and hugged him, a rare gesture. The music swelled, the golden lights glowed, and cameras captured every second. Jesus knelt on the floor, overwhelmed. In the audience, a woman was crying uncontrollably. Later, it was revealed she was his mother. She had flown all the way from Manila to surprise him. As the confetti fell, she ran onto the stage. Jesus turned, saw her, and both fell into each other's arms. The crowd went wild again. Simon wiped a tear and said, That's what this show is all about." The next few weeks, the video of Jesus's audition spread like wildfire online. Within 24 hours, it hit 10 million views. People from every part of the world shared it with captions like, "Faith restored in humanity," "He sang with heaven in his voice," and "The performance that made Simon cry." News outlets around the world picked up the story. "Jesus from Manila" became a trending topic across Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Churches, schools, and even hospitals played his performance for inspiration. But few knew the story behind that song. Long before the stage, Jesus had lived a life that was far from easy. Born in one of the poorer districts of Manila, he grew up in a small wooden house with a leaking roof. His father left when he was just 6 years old, leaving his mother to raise him alone. To help his mother, Jesus sang on the streets, sometimes outside restaurants, sometimes in jeepneys, just to earn a few pesos for rice. He remembered once when he was 9, standing under the rain, singing with his small guitar made of scrap wood. A man passing by threw him a coin and said, "Kid, you've got something special." Jesus smiled and said, "Someday I'll sing for the world." But life didn't make it easy. At 16, his mother fell ill. He spent nights by her bedside singing softly to her, hoping the music would heal her. She used to tell him, "When you sing, heaven listens." Those words stayed in his heart. One day, while she was in the hospital, she whispered, "Promise me you'll never stop singing, no matter what happens." He promised. When she passed away, Jesus was devastated. He stopped singing for months. The world felt silent, empty. But one night, sitting alone near Manila Bay, he heard a street preacher say, "Even in your darkest hour, light can still be born." Something inside him awakened. He picked up his guitar and began writing, "Light in the Storm." Years later, when America's Got Talent opened auditions in Asia, a friend recorded his video and sent it. He never expected to be called. When he received the email inviting him to Los Angeles, he cried for hours. He said, "Mama, your boy's going to sing for the world." That was the journey that brought him to that golden moment on AGT. During the semifinals, Jesus returned with another original song called "One Heart," a tribute to his late mother. The stage was quiet as he sang under a blue spotlight. The lyrics spoke about unity, love, and forgiveness. One heart can heal another. One soul can lift the night. If we stand for each other, we'll bring darkness into light. The crowd rose again, waving their phones with lights. The judges were in tears once more. Simon said, "You've given this competition something more than talent, you've given it purpose." Week after week, Jesus advanced effortlessly. Every performance carried a message deeper than the last: hope, faith, compassion. His calm presence and humility won over millions. In the finals, he stood on stage barefoot again, the same way he had begun. The host asked, "How are you feeling tonight, Jesus?" He smiled, "I'm just grateful. No matter what happens, this stage has shown me that love still speaks louder than hate." When he sang his final song, titled, "The World Will See," the entire theater seemed to transform. Visuals of the earth, clouds, and rays of light filled the screens behind him as his voice soared. When all walls fall, and hearts unite, the world will see the power of light. By the time he finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the audience. Even the cameramen were wiping their eyes. When the votes came in later that night, he didn't win first place, but it didn't matter. The crowd chanted his name as if he had. Even Simon stood up to give him a standing ovation. After the show, Simon met him backstage and said quietly, "You may not have won the trophy, but you've changed lives. That's something no title can replace." Jesus smiled. "Thank you, sir. That's all I ever wanted." Months later, he was invited to perform at charity events, schools, and international stages. His songs were streamed millions of times. People said his voice carried peace. But Jesus never let fame change him. He returned to Manila, rebuilt the small house where his mother once lived, and opened a music center for underprivileged children. He called it Light in the Storm Foundation. Every weekend, he would gather children in the courtyard and teach them how to sing and play instruments. He often told them, "You don't have to be rich to touch hearts. You just have to be real." One evening, as the sun set, a small boy asked, "Sir Jesus, why do you still sing on the streets sometimes?" He smiled gently, "Because that's where my story began. And light should always return to where darkness once lived." The boy nodded, not fully understanding, but he smiled too. Years passed, and people around the world still remembered the barefoot singer from Manila who sang not for fame, but for love. His AGT performance continued to be one of the most watched videos in the show's history. Comment sections filled with words like, "This healed me, he gave me hope again, his voice feels like prayer." Simon Cowell once said in an interview, "Out of all the auditions I've ever seen, Jesus from Manila remains the one that changed me personally. He reminded me that music isn't about perfection, it's about connection." And that was the legacy Jesus left behind. He didn't just sing a song. He made the world listen. He didn't just win hearts. He restored faith in humanity. And every time someone feels lost, somewhere in the world, his song still plays quietly, reminding people that even in the darkest storm, light still lives within us all.